Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Third Space Podcast, episode number 71, Douche and Goober Eats. Two of the lamest puns I could think of for DoorDash and Uber Eats, the food delivery services that make up the topic of this podcast. Daniel and I mostly complain about, actually, I'll go ahead and admit I mostly complain about DoorDash and Uber Eats. And Daniel doesn't push back that much, but he does push back a little bit, and we discuss whether these services are worthwhile, whether you should tip, our experiences with them, culturally, whether this sort of thing encourages laziness or whether it's a legitimate way to earn some side cash or, kick your heels up after a hard day. We really run this one to the ground, and there's some jokes in there. I thought this was a very fun conversation. So if you've ever used Uber Eats or DoorDash, or if you have ever delivered using Uber Eats or DoorDash, maybe you'll get a kick out of this episode, or maybe you'll hate us afterwards. Who knows? Whatever the case, here it comes. So enjoy it or not.
Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast.
Hello, Daniel.
Hello, Bennett.
How are you doing this fine week before Thanksgiving?
I'm doing okay. I went to Costco today on a Tuesday. It's usually not a lot going on a Tuesday in the rare days I've had off, like over the summer. But it was
you don't have to work
wild
today?
today. I did not have to work today. I actually had the whole week off. It's the first place
nice.
I've worked at where I've had the whole week off. And I've been grading papers literally like nonstop. I've treated it like a work day where I got up at the same time, I worked out, and Danielle's been going to work. And so it really has been like a work day. Like you had asked about the podcast, and I was like, I had literally 4 stacks of essays. I've been stressed. I've gotten through 4 stacks of essays in 2 days.
Nice. Just giving them all B's.
Yeah, just being it up, man. Just like caffeine, leaning forward and typing the letter B. And
To be or not to be?
all of them. Yep, to be.
Speaking of literature, kind of, I'm going to get there. How often do you whisper?
Oh, speaking of literature, how often do you whisper?
I'm gonna close this loop.
I mean, how do I even answer that? Not frequently. Not that frequently.
Once a day?
Ooh, I'd maybe even go to like definitely more than once a week.
Really?
Less than once a day for sure.
What circumstances do you whisper in?
It's mostly going to be an interaction with a student while they're working quietly, and I've noticed there's like a psychology behind if one person starts speaking, I don't necessarily go, hey, be quiet, like, because I'm not trying to govern with an iron fist, but there is really just the psychology of sound in the classroom. One person, and if there's another, that's when I start taking action because it's starting to spread. Or right when I told the class to be quiet, if one kid quickly pipes up, then I get them really quiet. So if one kid's getting a little loud, I might kind of make eye contact and I'd be like, hey, let's turn it down a little bit.
Yeah,
Right. Something like that.
How often? Okay, so in the classroom, I can see there being more call for whispering. How often do you think Danielle whispers?
I just don't see that happening ever. She might be on a call with me and someone comes in the room and she's on the headphones. She doesn't necessarily want to project that she's on a phone. She'll be like, hold on. Something quick just to alert me.
Right. The reason I ask, this is where the literature comes in. I was reading a book the other day, and it just struck me as I was reading that this particular author had the characters whispering pretty often. Like it would say, there would be 2 characters in conversation with each other, and maybe they were having an emotional moment, and one character was analyzing his vulnerabilities or something, and he was saying something particularly tough, and it said, he whispered whatever he whispered. And I was like, and it actually took me out of the story for a second, and I thought, wait a second, he whispered that?
Did he really whisper it?
Did he really? And I pictured it in my head, and I whispered out loud to myself, and I don't remember what the quote was, but let's just say it was something like, yeah, sometimes I'm not as smart as I think I am, or something. And it's like, that's a sentence.
Dumb.
That's a sentence that you whispered out loud to someone else, and you're outside. Like, it's not like you're in a library or in a stealth mission or whatever. This was just like a confession of some inadequacy. And I was like, no, this is not what the word you should use. And this happened throughout. And once I noticed it the first time, I noticed it the rest of the times in the book. And I wanted to ask you, as a person who's read all literature, is this a common thing that you've noticed? People using whisper when they shouldn't.
I can definitively tell you that I think it's bad writing, and I'll give you the rule that I read that stuck with me. It stuck with me like unusually. It was I forget what the book was, but it was on writing dialogue. And oftentimes, actually, when I try to read one book a year on writing, and you'll see overlaps in suggestions, and they get cemented in my head the more often I see them, obviously. So this is one I've seen several times, and it is, don't get fancy when it comes to dialogue with, like, he cajoled or he slyly grimaced. It's just use the word said, and it's okay. Don't get fancy, because you want if you've done a great job contextualizing the scene, if you know the characters, and if you need them to yell, or shout, if we're at this apex of the argument or whatever, or needs to hear across the room, if there's a reason for it, but it's going to stand out to your reader. Right. And so you just say he said, because if you don't need to say he sarcastically said, just because the sarcasm should be in the dialogue, not in the framing. That's begging the reader to come along. And so whispered, it doesn't this is actually a great example, a real world example of like not following that rule, and it like kind of making you go, what? Really? Is he whispering because he's vulnerable and he doesn't want the world to know?
Yeah.
And so I can kind of mentally get where the author is coming from,
of course,
because it's
you don't want to
vulnerable
use the word
or
said,
and said might get too. But we as a reader, if in good writing, like the word said, like you're just gonna have to use it a lot, and the reader's not gonna. So he said, like, I'm sick of this. It's not a noticeable word.
I was trying to think, okay, if I was the author, what would I do instead? And obviously the first thing that came to mind, I would say I would just use the word said over and over. But then I was like, well, maybe I just used that 2 sentences ago, and I want something else. And this is said in a different manner. So would I say said softly? Like, if I was having a conversation with someone and I was kind of quietly revealing some vulnerability, how would I say it?
Maybe just he revealed. I mean, that's enough. I can fill in the blank, you know?
I think
you don't
you're
get
right.
adjective said. Adjective said's even, or excuse me, adverb. You wouldn't, that's especially bad. If you can just say revealed, or even cajoled is better than he, pleadingly said, or he coaxingly said. Just he coaxed, or he cajoled, or something like that. Much
that
better.
Word.
But
cajole. It's a good word.
But said should be your bread and butter. Don't deviate from that because otherwise it's like
admitted.
It's a show don't tell, or it's a tell don't show violation. And like, instead of describing your bad guys being super evil, just have them do something evil, or have them say something jerkish. So the whisper, I deviated from whisper specifically, but it makes that's exactly where my mind went, was like, it is odd to have them. I mean, if they're in a library and they had to keep the sound down, then you have them whisper.
Of course, but whisper, just like you said with shouted, whisper stands out just as much.
It does.
And, I noticed it immediately, and because I'm playing the scene out in my head, and a good book, beams visuals into my brain while I'm reading it, and I'm picturing what's going on. and I'm picturing this scene, and these two characters are like on a billboard, you know, the little place you can stand on a billboard really
Yeah,
high
yeah.
up. That's where they were, and I was thinking, okay, it's probably windy up there, and
Yeah, you're not whispering.
there's probably a lot of noise, and they're two men who are partners, and they're probably not, you know, sitting right next to each other in physical
Right.
contact. They, you know, they got a few feet between them,
I don't
and
know
this
why
is
it's so
a
funny to me.
this is an emotional conversation towards the end of the book where the main character is, you know, revealing some weaknesses, and he's whispering, and I'm like, why doesn't the other character go, "Excuse me, mate, I can't hear you"? Like,
No, you're totally right. Because whispering, you're in a library or you're in some dark place where you think there could be someone else, you know?
Yeah.
And you're making, like, yeah, I'm not going to think twice about the flashlight and the wind occasionally howling through, and you lean close and you whisper, like, did you hear that? You know, that is good. I'm not even
fine.
batting an
Yeah.
eye at whisper, but just to be like two men on a
billboard.
billboard.
As
Two
they
men
say,
on a billboard.
two men on a billboard.
Just and he's being emotionally vulnerable, and then him whispering would make it be like, that's not. That's no. I would honestly probably be pulled out too.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's my. I hope I didn't ruin all of literature for you or for anyone else, but pay attention to that, and maybe over time people will not use whisper so much.
yeah, yeah.
I have another topic to discuss with you. I feel like I've been bringing a lot of complaints to the table, and I am going to do that again.
Like a grinds my gears segment.
Kind
or
of a
something
kind
like
of a
that.
grinds my gears thing, but maybe you can convince me that I shouldn't be that annoyed, or maybe you can be your perspective. So I want to discuss the phenomenon of DoorDash, Uber Eats, delivery culture stuff, because
Yeah.
we're definitely in the midst of that now.
Right. It's probably going to. My guess would be it's going to go more in that direction where you can get like, oh, I need some nail clippers or something. You know, like we haven't quite like gone that, or oh, I'm out of Q-tips, or shopping instead of going and getting a bunch of stuff. I
Yep.
imagine it. But
Now,
anyway,
let me tell you my experience. I'm not a proponent of DoorDash or Uber Eats. Never really used it. I'm happy to either make my own food or just go pick up my food. Now,
Yeah.
I don't live in
Yeah.
a super urban area where I have to deal with a lot of traffic or long commute or anything. But on a couple of occasions, I've had a work trip where I travel to, you know, a decent sized city, and I don't have a car. And so then it's like, okay, well, do I want to walk and get something to eat or deliver pizza? Oh, why don't I use Uber Eats? And so that was my thought process. And I've done this twice now on two relatively recent work trips. Both of the work trips, I was appalled because it asked me for a tip before I got my food. And
Yeah.
I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to tip someone before they arrive, especially with this, what is to me a very risky service. And then both
Right.
times my meal ended up not having utensils with it, and of course I'm in a hotel and I don't, you know, I have no utensils in there either. So it's like, well, now my meal is significantly more inconvenient to eat. I got ice cream on one of them, and when I got it, it was like totally melted. And so my experience has been pretty much only bad, and it took forever. By the way, it took like 45 minutes to get my dinner.
Yeah.
So and the cost is exorbitant. Like one time, the ice cream that I mentioned, normally it's like $9 or something for a large. I was really pigging out.
Yeah.
And by the time everything was said and done, it was almost $20 between delivery fee and taxes and all this other nonsense. And so my experience with DoorDash, Uber Eats, I'll just give you my thesis up front, is that they suck. They are they are kind of, I don't want to be too inflammatory here, but I think these are trashy people services. Like I think that, you know, there are things that you associate with
The consumer or like the deliverer?
the consumer, and maybe
Okay.
the deliverer a little. We can talk about that separately, but mainly on the consumer end, there are things that seem to be associated with bad fiscal responsibility, leasing cars, renting, even though I rent, but those like rent-a-centers where you like rent your TV and stuff.
Oh yeah, you can rent furniture and
Bond,
layaway type stuff,
right?
like just
Title sales and bond, all of that stuff.
we
Loan
buy
shark
gold.
stuff. Yeah, we
Just
buy
my,
gold.
yeah.
All of that kind of thing. I put Uber Eats and DoorDash into that category. And I'm sure that there are people who use it, who are not trashy. And of course, this is a new phenomenon, so a lot of people are using it. But I think that like the equilibrium is that it's not a very good financial decision. You don't get the value you think you do. The convenience that you're paying for isn't quite worth the money. That's my sense on it, having used it twice. So I could be really wrong here, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it. You tell me where I'm wrong, and maybe we can find some plus sides to this whole.
Well, I want to layer
thing.
on a few complaints.
Okay.
And then we'll like try and give the devil his due kind of thing.
Right.
So I think there's a transparency issue as well. If you log on to one of those apps, it might even say, hey, order in these places in the next 15 minutes and it's free, no delivery charge. So you're like, oh, wow, okay. But the transparency issue is that when you pull up a menu, you're not looking price. You're looking at the price through Uber Eats or whatever. Like, and it's a completely like distorted price. So they're able to make money on you going through the app.
Yeah.
And act like they're not charging you anything. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but I've like noticed, and I actually saw Danielle show me this TikTok recently of you'll see something like Heavenly Hamburger. You're like, oh, I haven't heard of that place. Like, cool. And you can look at the address and you can look it up, and it's a freaking Denny's, using a ghost kitchen kind of thing. So this is actually pretty frequently where you'll have often places like a Chili's or some place that has just a catch-all, a pub grub type menu.
Right.
They'll do something like superb salad, and it'll be its own like just online or on. And so you can, it's almost funny to see, oh, well, they must make extra good salad since it's just a salad place. But it's Chili's. You can look up the address.
What the heck? I had no idea.
So, yeah, ghost kitchens are like a thing. What I don't know is if you're at Chili's and let's say you've ordered from Superb Salad and you like it, what would happen if you were at Chili's? Surely they could make it for you, right? Or would they say, no, this is chili? Clearly they have the ingredients and stuff. But I want to know, like, when someone goes to work, are they clocking in for Chili's or
what's
Superb
going on
Salad?
There? Is it like the manager at Chili's? This is a side gig, or is that money going to Chili's, or like what's the deal?
And I'm sure it is going to Chili's, but they might have 2, 3, not just one, but like 2 or 3 ghost kitchens. And why aren't they just, because people don't want to order their chili, because Chili's probably makes a crappy salad, but Superb Salad, they must do it right. And so,
well, I mean, Chili's and Applebee's and that kind of low tier eatery, it has a certain reputation. It has a tacky reputation. I personally, I think that it's the same kind of reputation that Nickelback gets, and it's not quite
right. Like it's pretty good. It's fine. People are overreacting.
Yeah,
it's just like
it's fun to bash on.
Like, yeah, it is. It's easy to go, oh, it's so gross. Are you kidding me? It's like, no, it's delicious.
All of these complainers. I don't complain that much about things. These people complain about Chili's and whatever.
Freaking complainers.
I'm very open to Chili's and Applebee's and that sort of thing. DoorDash and Uber Eats. Now those guys, they can hit the road, if you know what I mean.
But I tie that all back to transparency. So there's just something weird when the price model isn't transparent. Even who you're ordering from isn't transparent.
Yeah.
The timing isn't particularly transparent.
The timing is awful. Like food is one of the things, like, you expect to get a warm meal or a cold ice cream, and you're just not going to get that. They can put it in whatever kind of stupid little cushioned carry case that they want. Like, it's not going to retain its temperature very well over an hour and 15 minutes or however long it takes them to deliver.
Yeah. Well, there's deliveries because they're not equipped. Like Pizza has the pizza boxes, pizza delivery people, or the aluminum, cases and stuff.
That's another thing. What's going on? The pizza industry has forged this trail. And
they definitely have. They were the only that and Chinese takeout, right? I think they would in cities anyway.
You're telling me that I can order a custom large pizza overflowing with cheese, and it arrives at my hotel. I did this. It arrives at my hotel room in like 15 minutes, smoking hot, and the guy doesn't ask for a tip. It didn't prompt me for a tip beforehand, and he was just like, "Have a nice." He brought it to my hotel room, right? I didn't have to go down to the like carport and pick it up or whatever. And it's like, all right, amazing. I'm gonna eat the crap out of this pizza. Now where's my freaking ice cream? And I don't get it for another 40 minutes or something.
Right.
And it's
Right.
melted.
And
And I don't
melted.
have a spoon. So like,
And if
Get
they're
it
not
together.
prepared to deliver it in that time frame where you're not going to get quality ice cream, then don't sell it.
Yeah.
If there's some assumption, oh, if I'm buying it from here, they must deliver it in some device that keeps it cold.
now let me
to some degree.
put myself in the shoes of an Uber Eats driver or DoorDash driver or something, because I think I know what they might say to this. They would say, well, if you want your ice cream there fast, then put in a big tip. Put in a big tip to start with, and that way the drivers will pick your order and prioritize you and make sure it makes it there fast. That's what they would say. So what do you say to that?
So you have to, because then tip is this punitive thing instead of this reward thing. That's what it sounds like to me. Like ordering ice cream means you should get ice cream. I mean, once it's melted, is it ice cream anymore? It's something else. It's just this liquid, this
cream.
sugary liquid. So yeah, it's just cream. I should have gotten there faster. But like, it's like, oh, you wanted your food hot. Oh, you wanted your icy with ice.
Oh, yeah, you should've tipped.
You should have tipped. Is just an absurd
It is
proposition
absurd.
that like from the beginning, it's like if I order a steak, then I should get, oh, you wanted it cooked? I don't know.
Yeah, right.
It's just like there's just some assumptions that go along with baseline orders. Tips, I was always told it stood for to ensure prompt service, and it's a whole other area of like tip culture is out of control.
Man, it is so out of control.
And I think that has just plagued all of these services. But well, I mean, I've seen things where I saw a little video where a guy goes in and it looked like it was a little quick shop, like at an airport or something, like a quickie mart kind of thing, and buys a bottle of water. He does a self checkout and it asks for a tip.
Oh, jeez.
It's like, and so it's not even a big
Where's
store. You
this
walk
going?
in, there was no, there were actually no employees. He actually showed the camera. There's no, and it just had self checkouts and probably some security somewhere somehow. I don't know. But so he goes to pay and it asks for a tip. And it was just an unbelievable transaction. Like, who am I tipping?
Ridiculous.
Like, where is this going? Why would I do that for this, already like $6 bottle of water or whatever it is? It's like, the frustration on that.
My thought is, we've done a whole episode where I complained about tipping before.
Yes.
And so I won't rehash that ground in total, but the thesis of that episode was that tipping is out of control. And in that episode, we were talking about eating in a sit-down restaurant or getting your hair cut or whatever. But since then, we have essentially started a new industry. Uber Eats and DoorDash, these are new things. They didn't exist 10 years ago, really.
Yeah.
And like, what are we thinking making new industries that that participate in tip culture? Like, this is the wrong thing. Anything new we make, we should be extra conscious to not have it be a tip industry because it's out of control. Like, they should have, DoorDash and Uber Eats or whatever, they should have said, oh, we're starting this brand new thing. Like, we're going to actually pay our drivers, the appropriate amount, and the delivery fee that pays them. And we're not going to ask more from the customers. That's how it should be.
If tipping is assumed, it's robbing me of the joy of tipping. Like saying that guy was
That's
extra
true.
good. I want to give more.
Well, let me
And
tell
so,
you.
yeah.
Let me just tell you a personal anecdote that I'm in the midst of right now. So I have a favorite restaurant in the town I live in. It's a chicken restaurant. I love it. It competes with Chick-fil-A, but I eat both of them all the time. I love them so much.
So it's fast foodish as well.
Yeah, it's fast foodish. But I go. They have a special deal on Tuesdays on chicken strips. Today's Tuesday, and you can get 3, and these are giant chicken strips, and they're super breaded and delicious. And you can get 3 for $5, which is like a significant discount because normally it's like 3 for $7.50 or something. Pretty expensive chicken tenders. And so on Tuesdays, I go in and I get 2 of the 3 things because I'm a growing boy and I want my chicken tenders.
And for $10, you get 6 of these monsters.
6 monster tenders.
And you're saying that like one could be considered a reasonable snack. They're that big.
Yeah, you probably know how big Chick-fil-A's chicken tenders are. These are like twice as big as a Chick-fil-A chicken tender. So these are some real deal chicken tenders. They're very tasty. Since I go in there every Tuesday, they recognize me now and they remember my name. And when I walk in, I don't have to say anything. They just say, "Oh, hey, we'll get your order ready," basically. And if it's someone, like, if they have a new person or whatever, then I have to go through the rigmarole. But they ring me up and give me my chicken tenders. I don't have to do anything, and it's amazing. Yeah. They're super nice. Yeah. They will ask me, how my day's been or how my week is or what I'm doing for the holidays or whatever. Very friendly, and I never tip them. The little
I didn't know where it was going. Like, yeah.
The little credit card machine pops up and it asks.
Respect that on some level. You know what, this guy.
Well, I'll tell you though, I was nervous. I don't think I should.
You have a repeated relationship with them, and so you're invested in this being positive, and now they're like, and now it's like, in order to have a positive relationship, do I have to actually have like some sort of additional financial compensation for the relationship? Like,
Well, I'm weighing some stuff here. I'm trying to really work out this philosophy in my real life.
Each time, pay $12. It's like, okay, obviously I can afford that, but like the whole reason I came, that negates like why I came.
Let me tell you where I'm at right now. Like, I've been eating there now for almost 2 years, weekly, right? So that's a lot of chicken strips.
Yeah.
And we've gotten to know each other a little bit, and they've been consistently friendly and have only messed up my order twice, and they fixed it both times. So they've been top tier in pretty much every regard.
What are they messing up? They're getting 6 chicken tenders.
One time
putting in 5.
One time they gave me 3 instead of 6 in the bag.
And so clearly, just the order missing.
Yeah, just a mess up. It was like that both times. And then when I went back, they gave me an extra one both times. So they made it better.
Overcompensated, yeah.
Anyway, like, all of that said, to go back to the last tipping podcast, they're not waiting on me at my table. They're not coming and refilling my drink because I'm not ordering a drink.
Stiffing them.
I'm not. Yeah. All they're doing is taking the strips out of the fryer, putting them in the container, putting the container in the bag, handing it to me. Like, that's the extent of their job, right?
And you're clicking no tip on a digital screen.
And I'm clicking no tip on a digital screen when I go to pay. And at the very first, because I have a principle for this, I didn't feel bad because that's what I do to everywhere. I don't tip on these sorts of pickup orders. And then after they started to remember my order and remember my name, then I started to be like, oh, they're really nice. Like, I like these people. But I'm not tipping them. But now let me tell you where I'm at, because in the last few months, I've just really appreciated how nice they are and how great their service is. Like, I might do a one-time big tip, like for Christmas or something, like give them $50 or $100 or something, and say like, "Merry Christmas, like, you guys are awesome, keep up the good work." And like, that seems reasonable to me, right? Like, that's a good relationship between customer.
And you made the decision to do it. I was gonna say that you should do something really. You should explore the idea of doing something odd that like you bring to them, something that they can take a picture of you with.
I don't want to do that. I don't even know if I want to be identified with the tip. I might just drop a $100 bill in the jar and leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah, you want it to be selfless in that regard. You really want it to just be a gift. But man, it'd be just funny coming in with like baskets of Christmassy stuff, and like you're like, "Wow, Merry Christmas, everyone!" and just throw some glitter, red and green or something. I don't know.
No, God,
because you love glitter.
No, that sounds horrible.
I really thought you were thinking about like, I don't know what gift you would do. Like, if you like noticed like, oh, little Jimmy has a limp, and you bring in some crutches.
Bring in some new crutches.
Yeah.
Gosh. And he would be like, "Oh, thank you, sir. Thanks for the crutches. You didn't even know, but my crutches were already broken and held together by electrical tape, not even duct tape."
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, well, I don't know what you would get a chicken employee.
I wouldn't get them anything.
exactly.
I wouldn't get them anything in particular because I don't know what they want. I don't.
Right.
They're just generally nice folks, and there are a handful of them that I see every Tuesday.
Would you be in if they're like, this is it, this is when I'm giving the tip, and it was someone new? Would you just not give the tip then, or would you be like, no, they just lucked out? Like,
Well, I assume that they split them up.
yeah, I would assume it too, right? That it just kind of goes in a bucket. And
For
at
a
the
place
end,
like this, they're not waiting. This isn't a sit down restaurant, so they're not waiting on tables.
right?
So I would assume they just split the tips at the end of the day between everyone. Now
Yeah.
I could be
So
wrong. Some
so your
places.
$50 or your $100 just ends up being like $6 or $7 for them or something.
I mean, there are
That's
only like 5 or 6 people there, so
Okay.
I mean, it's not
Yeah.
nothing. It's like buying everyone a lunch,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that to me seems kind of nice. That seems reasonable for a 2 year chicken tender relationship,
Yeah.
where they've been pretty stellar.
You should
And so
say something like, and if you keep being nice in 2 years, you might
you might get
Yeah.
another. There's more where this came from.
2 years of work, 2 more years of this, and I might throw in an extra 20.
Oh, jeez. Well, anyway, like all of that to justify that I'm not just some Scrooge McDuck miser. Like, I recognize good service, but it has to be real. It can't be fake, and you certainly can't be opaque and non-transparent like these apps are and essentially steal the tip from me or blackmail me saying we're only going to deliver you cream instead of ice cream unless you give us $5 up front. Like, that's not good enough.
What I'm wrestling with is, you said you're not Scrooge-ish, and part of me wanted to laugh and tease you and go, sure you are a little bit, but so let me try to make a serious case because I don't really think you are. I think though, okay, like I follow your logic and I agree with you. I'm just maybe not as brave, or I'm not as willing to risk the social cost, which is, I guess, brave or not brave, whatever. So as the culture gets more and more liberally tipping, like just throwing it out there, and you remain steadfast, you appear more Scrooge-ish. And so at what point, like, if like is your Scrooge-ish socially determined or not? Because if it is, you're pretty much Scrooge. But if it's not, if you ask, if well, I don't know that, but I'm just saying, if you asked 90 people and they're like, "Come on, Bennett," and 88 of them said, "Come on, Bennett, you're being stingy," then even if you're principled, and even if 88 people are wrong, like the perception is that you're Scrooge, so you are Scrooge, and like that's
Well,
what I'm saying. That I think there's a real risk of that
Okay.
by just not tipping. But like, what's the cost? I don't know. These people are still nice, and you have. Then if you give, you're actually going to feel good, I imagine, giving $100.
That's
or
how it
50
should
bucks, or
be.
whatever it is.
A real tip makes the giver and the receiver feel nice.
Yes.
A
Whereas I feel
fake tip,
taxed.
a
like,
fake tip makes the giver and the receiver feel crappy because the giver feels like it was an obligation forced on them, and the receiver may be like, "Oh, only 15%," and then and that's a bad situation for everyone. But let me respond to your social consequences point. Yes, yes, that there are some social strings attached to tipping, and let me also defend myself a little bit for our huge audience who may not have listened to the previous episode. Like, I worked in a restaurant for 7 years, and I made my money on tips. So this isn't coming from someone who hasn't been in the industry. Like, I get it.
Yeah,
I understand how it is, but I don't agree with how it is. And I certainly don't agree with the trajectory that we're going. So I understand that people make their money on tips, and I'm not saying that waiters and waitresses or bartenders or whoever aren't worth paying or beneath me. I'm not making any of those claims. I'm just saying they should get paid a consistent wage appropriate for the service they're providing, not expecting this bonus, which is not written down anywhere, right? This isn't a contractual obligation between
But
customer
it's really
and
tough
whoever.
on them. It makes their job tough when businesses are
yeah.
allowed to rip them
Yes.
off in order, and we pick up the slack. Like,
Yes,
it's
I
just
totally,
such a-
I totally agree. And if we would just let the market decide how much they're worth, how much they get paid, and how much people are willing to pay, it would all equalize eventually and be like Japan or something where they don't tip, and people give good service and you get the products that you pay for.
I'd much prefer that, especially too when sometimes like if I ordered fancy cocktails at a bar where they had to really muddle the stuff and
Yeah, right.
put in frothy egg stuff and light some stuff on fire, like
Cream.
you want a tip, on that. But when I ordered a vodka club or like they open up a can of
Yeah, I
White
mean, give me a
Claw for
break.
me, like
Give me a break.
it's just and then is the expectation 20% for that bartender, or they have some $5 Jello shots I order around for my friends and they're pre-made or poured from some bucket that my
Yeah.
point is that like they just pour 5 of them, hand it over, and let's say it's not $5, let's say it's whatever, but like sometimes that stuff's like $80 for a round.
Yeah.
And now I'm going, do I tip like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, $16 on that?
Right. Well, I mean, I used to be a bartender, and like there were people who would come in and get a Bud Light in a bottle, and I would reach into the cooler, pull out the Bud Light, take off the cap, hand it to them, and they would leave me a tip for that. And I'm like, what are you?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't say I've said thank you, but like in my mind, I'm going, what are you doing? Like, why are you tipping me for this?
And
like,
let's say they charge well, I don't know, overpriced. They're $4.
of course
and
they
so
were
give you
overpriced.
and they
It
give
was
you
restaurant
$5.
beer.
Yeah, a restaurant beer that's another weird thing about alcohol, and I want to go back to Uber and all that stuff, but like it's like when I order a burger at a restaurant, like you can argue that there's some artistic process in
Yes.
creating of that food, but when it's like
A bottled
the
beer.
Coors Light,
Yeah.
the bottle, like it's odd to charge so much more.
I totally agree. Like that's why I don't order alcohol in restaurants, because
Why do
it's
we
like,
accept it? Do we just go, oh well, beer license and liquor license, that's expensive? Like, okay.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know why people accept
Why do we
it.
accept that that's really
I don't.
expensive? And what? So what? Like yeah. And I also
doesn't-
like as someone who like I don't really enjoy the taste. I either want to just drink in a social situation and go dance with friends, or I want to eat my food. Like the idea of paying like a $12 for a vodka and club soda with my dinner, and then like it's just an absurd. It's just not a proposition I'm interested in.
As far as me accepting the social consequences of my tipping behavior, time will tell how I respond. But I'm pretty comfortable now in most situations, just being friendly and whatever, and just not tipping. Like that's okay with me. If you give me personal service to high quality, like maybe if I'm getting a haircut, and which I hate getting haircuts, by the way. But if they have appropriate friendly conversation, they do a good job, and whatever, then I'll tip them $4 or whatever is appropriate.
Yeah.
But not if I'm walking up to a cash register and just picking up a to-go order. Like that's something that does not fall into the tippable category to me. And like if some jerk notices that I don't tip in that situation and they scowl at me, that does not bother me. Like those are social consequences I don't care about. If they spit in my food, obviously that's worse, but my immune system pretty good right now. So, unless if I don't know it's happening, then I'm probably not going to be hurt by that. So whatever.
And I think that argument of like you better tip them or they'll spit in your food. Again, that's the punitive thing, which is all wrong. And
It is
and
wrong.
and I don't.
I don't think it's that common.
I suspect it's not common and not true. I mean, maybe I'm foolish and naive here, but
Yeah, well, you know what? Like
really doing that.
this is the attitude that I'm going to take to this for all of you like short order chefs and everything who are listening to this. Do it. Do it. I don't care. I'm going to eat it anyway. Like I got white blood cells and stuff. They're going to eat that stuff up and I'm going to be fine, and you're not getting my tip money for that. So
yeah,
suck
and
it.
you're not, and you're not feeling any better really by doing it. Like I
Yeah.
imagine that they're like I doubt they feel vindicated, and the fact that you don't really care, like,
Yeah.
kind of robs them of any of that joy anyway.
Right. Yeah, and if I don't detect it, then I don't detect it. You get no satisfaction and I get my meal. If I do detect it, then I'm never eating at your restaurant again, and you're not going to get my business. And maybe you don't care about
Just
that, but that's just the
go
way it
with
is.
go with me on that thought though. I'm prepping someone's food and I see that they're kind of a jerk to maybe the person, the waiter or whoever's taking their order, and I'm prepping. So there's a couple of things that it bothers me that like the spitting in the food would be an option. I would feel good about myself if I said, "Hey, I'm not serving you. You're being a jerk," or if I stood up and I felt empowered that way. I think that's appropriate. I engaged, I leaned into the tension, and I'd feel okay about doing that.
You're saying if you were a waiter, for example, and your
I'm saying if
customer was a jerk?
I'm the cook in the back, and I hear this jerk come in to the waiter or to the person
Mm-hmm.
ringing them up, and the jerk's just being louder and more of a jerk. And I said, you know what? I'm not serving. I'm not making your
Oh, I see.
sandwich.
Get out. Yeah.
I'm engaging in the friction, and I could feel good about that.
Sure.
But my greater point is that if I just said, you know what, this guy's a jerk, and I like,
Yeah,
and I
right.
spit in his food, and he didn't know, and I felt good about doing that.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
actually
just a crappy
saying there's something
person.
dark. I'm a crappy person. If
Yeah.
I and I, yeah, do people legitimately feel good about that?
See, I don't. There are a lot of awful people out there, but at least in my own experience, working in the restaurant that I did, I never once witnessed anyone do anything inappropriate to anyone's food or mention it or hint at it. Like it was totally off the table, not even considered. We had plenty of jerks come in and act like jerks, and we gave them as the best service that we could, and maybe we would come back to the back and go, man, these guys are jerks, but
Yeah, whine
that's
behind their
just
back. That's fun. That's part of like.
that's just the way it
You
is.
need that.
Like
Yeah.
you're gonna get some jerks, and that's just the way it is. And you take the jerks with the not jerks, and sometimes you get people who are really wonderful and friendly and regulars or whatever, and that makes things all better. But no one considered spitting in people's food. That's just not something that we thought of. Now, granted,
But I'm
we
imagining-
were a decent restaurant. We
That's what I
weren't
was
like
gonna
a
say.
Chili's or something.
Yeah, I think that does account for like you weren't. Yeah, the people there were not desperate. Neither the patrons nor the people working there.
The Patriots.
And the Patriots, and it was just a decent. And it was like, honestly, I mean, wouldn't you say most of the people eating there also had a good experience as
Oh, yeah,
well?
totally,
Like
yeah.
tasty food, good service.
Yeah.
Yeah, special occasions, people come in with a good mood. Basically, it's not a hellhole because
No,
that's
no.
actually something that I've and you're positing maybe that the Uber Eats landscape could be this hellhole, or it could really delve into. Like,
I think it might be getting there. It might be pushing that boundary a little bit.
I think you might be not far off from it because the way Danielle and I treat it, I don't like it. I resist it for all the reasons you outlined. But there is something, I feel a little bougie if it's like, you know what? Like, there have been the Fridays where it's like, I don't want to deal with Friday traffic in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
city kind of thing. And maybe I want to make a Friday afternoon drink and like just order the food and sit back and be a king and have
Yeah,
my food delivered to me. And
I get it. Yeah.
And I think, but every time if you do that, we're sort of picky, not picky like we just might want extra ranch, and so you have to
Yeah.
type it in. Please
Yeah.
send 3 extra ranch and an extra beer cheese, please. We will
Right.
pay for it. There's a
Hope and
nebulous
pray.
like
Yeah, hope and pray that it
yeah,
happens.
It is. It's a hope and pray. And so, and you imagine the payoff is hit and miss,
Yeah.
depending on the establishment you order from. If it's a Chili's, they're just not going to
Right.
do it. But like, a local pub grub might be more likely to. But it seems to me like, let's say we're going to pig out and get an appetizer and a thing and a dessert. You know how expensive like it's
Yeah.
it's just if not more expensive than eating there.
Totally.
It is more so it's just. It doesn't sit right with me that you'll be like, oh man, $80 for like this one meal experience. In which, honestly, if we're ordering that much food, it ends up being one more meal after that. But I'm just saying that that. And then there's the tracking the car. Like, quick sad story. We were in Atlanta one night, and the only place open was Crystal, and Logan had, it was a night of indulgence, let's say. And so it was like 2 a.m., and he kind of chuckled. He's like, I want Crystal. I'll get enough for, like, all of us. We're all, like, hungry. It's 5 of us. And the guy gets stuck in the Crystal line. You can track his car, and he's just stuck in Crystal line for over an hour. We all fall asleep. At 4, no lie, after 4 o'clock, the doorbell rings. I'm the only one down there that can hear it. I go and I get the Crystal. He ordered, and he says it must have been a mistake, but there were 96 Crystal.
What? What?
And Adam wouldn't wake up, and so we all ate like 2 Crystal each. We had 96 Crystal. So we were like,
how much did it cost?
Oh, I have no idea actually. And it was like,
I mean, crystals used to be less than $1, but I shudder to think what they are now.
It was 6 bags of these big. They had these things called sackfuls.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's
like,
hilarious.
It was so many Crystal, and we still talk about like the night of the Crystals. 96, not even kidding. Like,
the Crystal
just
King.
like, what are we just laughing and being like, I'm sleepy and going back to bed like after 2 Crystals.
2 crystals out of 96. The Crystal Kingdom. Oh, that's very funny. I have not heard that story.
Yeah. And it just because whenever it's like a late night, what food should we get? He said, how about Crystal?
How about Crystal? We still got some leftovers.
But all the delivery service stuff, I don't know. I do think we'll trend in the direction of like everything delivered to our door. But I think like the $5 or the $3 nail clippers are going to be like $12.99.
Yeah,
you give a tip on top of it, so you pay $15 for some direct to your door nail clippers. Like, I think 7-Eleven and like not Eckerd's, CVS and things are like getting in on this and doing the like, oh yeah, you want just like some,
you want your toothpaste?
Sinus, yeah, you need some Tylenol, like go for it.
It's ridiculous. What about from the driver's side? So from the customer side, kind of trashy, not worth it. But think about the people taking the Uber Eats and DoorDash, or even regular old Uber for that matter. This kind of culture of app-based contractor stuff. Like, what do you think about them? Is this a good career? I won't say career, but even job path. Like, should people? I mean, to me, it seems like these people are being taken advantage of.
I think they're. Yeah, I mean, you could say it expands the market for those. People who give people rides and said, I don't want to give people rides, there's safety issues, but that seems fake. Like, going to someone's apartment complex or house, you could get jumped delivering the food. It's a false sense of security, to think it's any safer. So I just don't see any difference really, other than like if you're socially awkward and it gives you anxiety to pick up passengers, I could see that. Whereas, just delivering food, you don't have to think about it. Or you could just even do it with friends for an evening. I really could imagine like us at 16, 17, just like on a Friday night doing it and having some fun, seeing the city, particularly David, and
right,
so but I like some Uber drivers, I'm always curious and I talk to them a lot, but I think a higher degree than I'm comfortable with see it as like, well, it is supplemental income frequently, but it just seems like a rat, like a spinning wheel type thing. Like, they're putting this in there. It's not. It just seems like I was talking to this teacher who was giving us a ride. It's just sort of like she just seemed like the kids wouldn't like her. She was just dreadful. She was nice, but she just kind of,
She was no Daniel. That's what you're saying.
No Daniel.
She was no teacher of promise.
I'm being so mean, but she's just like, yeah, just have to drive because sometimes it's supplement. You could hear, she's just big. Yeah. She was big. And so I don't know. I just, I don't see people like they see it as almost this get some real money on the side hustle kind of thing, and it's not helping. Yeah. Like, if you put your energy towards something else, I think it'd be better. I don't know. I mean, a jerk.
I think that some of that is fair. I get it. Like, people do make supplemental income that way, and that's, you got to make money where you can make money. So fine and all, fine. But it just,
There's
to me,
also
it
the
seems like,
retiree person who just likes chatting with people and
yeah,
kind of
sure.
helping people out. I've seen
I've
that, and
seen that too.
they take
But I
pride in
mean,
there. They have chargers and it's clean, and they
I've
put on some music and talk to you. They
I've
take some
I've
real
used
pride. I love
Uber.
that.
I've used Uber itself much more than the food delivery services. And my Uber experiences, which again, I'll just say it, I've never tipped for Uber ever. Um,
Yeah.
but and but I have generally good experiences with Uber. My drivers are friendly. They arrive on time. They drop me off on time. For the most part, I've had a couple instances where they cancel and really screw me, but that's pretty rare overall. And so that part is fine. Oh, just one more really quick bit about social consequences. As we move from in-person interactions, like ordering food from a person, a cashier, or having a waiter or waitress, and we move to this mass crowd-funded, crowd-sourced driver stuff, like I am never going to see, you know, Jamal or Darren or whoever it is that delivers my food, I will never see them again. And so I have no attachment to them and have no reason to expect social consequences from not tipping them, right? Like, so
Yeah.
so,
Then
so that
I
social
think your
connection is not
profile,
there.
they could say doesn't tip in the behind the scenes, like
I don't care.
yeah, and that might be why you might get canceled on
I've
more often or not. I
I've
don't
I've only
know.
gotten canceled twice in hundreds of Uber drives. So I don't and my rating, if you log in and look at theirs, like 5 stars or whatever. So
Yeah.
they're not dinging me on that. At least maybe they could. Maybe that's leverage that they could get over on me, which would suck. But like,
But it's
anyway,
not
it's
yet
not.
the
But it's
issue.
not. But yeah. Anyway, for drivers, like it seems like there's no room for advancement. The rat wheel, kind of like you're saying, and you're in your own car, so you're taking the risk for accidents. You're spending the money on gas. You're taking the health hits of sitting in a seat, all day, and like it's just not that wonderful of a job. You're increasing traffic. You're harming the environment. Like all of these things seem negative, and as a culture, for us to embrace this, what I see as lazy on both ends, right? So from the consumer side, it's lazy because yeah, you can't
Uber
make
Eats specifically, or
Uber Eats
food delivery
food
services. Yeah.
delivery. Yeah, you can't make your own food. You can't go get your own food. You're just having someone deliver you your Taco Bell or your super
Yeah.
salad or whatever. Like that's lazy. Maybe you had a hard day at work and you're treating yourself fine, but just in general, that's lazy. From the driver
Yes, it
end,
is. Yeah.
from the driver end, you're not making anything. You're not creating a product. You're not actually doing any service that takes any sort of ability or intelligence. You're sitting in your car seat and you're pressing your pedals and turning the wheel. Like it's just not that intellectually stimulating. You're not contributing anything really to society except you're indulging the customer's laziness. And I'm not saying that that's nothing. I'm just saying it's not that great.
Yeah, screw them. No, but like, it's not a long term. I'm imagining people like do this for short term.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
like I really do imagine, and this actually bears out Let's say I've done it 15 times. It really seems it's not infrequent that it's like two people that are definitely high, pulling up and just like, here's your food, man, and I'm like, and that just fits, and it seems fine to me. Not, I mean, I'm against driving while high or whatever, but I'm like
Yeah.
just like two bros just sort of like, hey, want to just make a quick buck and while we're like having some fun and give people some food, because we're
Yeah.
not doing anything else. It's like, yeah, that's fine. Where it's a little, and hopefully they're not in their 30s or 40s or really even their 20s. Like it doesn't. It seems like it's great for, like I said, some like
Yeah.
17-year-old Bennett and Daniel would like
During the
who
summer
are
or
bored of
something.
B movies and just want to take a break and like for some reason like want to, yeah, I don't know, just see
Now-
different parts and neighborhoods and stuff. So
All of that negativity and complaints aside, like I can see some value in like for elderly or disabled people ordering food. I can see
For sure.
legitimate benefits in that,
Or
or
injured,
elderly
businesses.
or disabled drivers. If you are still able to drive, obviously, if you're not a woman, for example, then you should be able to drive and make some extra money on the side. So I was trying to be nice, and then I couldn't.
Yeah, you're making a nice point. You had to put in some
couldn't-
sarcasm.
I couldn't manage it. But if like you said, the retired person who just wants to chat people up or whatever, like that seems fine, and I can see some benefit in that. However, I think that we will see all of this sort of delivery culture stuff shift to robots
Yeah.
before long, and that is correct. That is what should happen, and then we should never tip the robots.
Oh my God, can you imagine it still doing that? Like tips and like
Yeah, can you imagine a
tips to
robot like
robots.
putting out its hand, tip please, or whatever? Like that would be
It tells you a joke and you're like, more tip please. I don't know, like, or it just starts to say like, if you tip me, 80% of the proceeds will go to starving kids,
right.
and or something like that.
that's
what it would
definitely
do.
plausible. That's definitely plausible.
It's like, well, why 80%? What 20% do you need, robot? But I guess if it's emblematic of a greater societal ill, which is like we want to be comfortable, aka lazy, and so as we develop things, it's to make us more comfortable and lazier.
Yeah.
And so, okay, you extend this out, and we're living like we're pretty much there. I can shop and buy anything on Amazon and order Uber Eats and work from home and never
Yeah.
leave and basically
Live in a pod.
just live in a pod. Like we're actually in the early stages of that. It's like we're
Yes.
definitely at the early stage where I can get everything I need and work from home and yeah, just all of it. I can everything. Like there is no need to leave a room right
Right,
now.
your tiny.
Like,
You could live in your tiny home, have your single room convert to between your bedroom and your office and your
yeah,
kitchen.
a studio,
And
like a
you,
studio, basically.
you just reach to your little your food delivery hatch. After you've ordered your Uber Eats from your robot, and your meal would be right there for you in the hatch. You wouldn't even have to get out of your bed / couch / office chair.
And that might actually get more and more. Like imagine buildings having like hubs where like the delivery person or robot just puts it there, and then it like tubes to your place where you have a dumbwaiter type
Yeah.
device to open it up. And so yeah, I mean, I think that we'll get closer.
That would
to
be
that kind of
really
thing.
cool, by the way. Like I've always thought about that when I was a kid, and I used to ride in the car with my mom or dad to the bank, and they had the vacuum tubes.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
those are so.
that's kind of that's a foreign idea now. You don't because people don't use cash so much and don't go to the bank and everything. But I used to think
Yeah.
those things were super cool. And I
Me
used
too.
I used to think about that like in the future everything's going to be delivered by vacuum tubes, and you're not going to go to the grocery store. It's going to vacuum tube it to you. In the same way, I used to think like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if my like if I had a road to everywhere I go. Like I come out of my driveway.
Yeah,
Right now I'm on a
just the
road.
Bennett road.
Everyone can drive on that road, but in the future, maybe, if I really make it in life, I'll just have a road that goes everywhere I go.
I don't see how that's exactly related, but
It's not,
You know,
but it's just
coming from the
whimsical,
same
whimsical
wonder of a
child thoughts.
child.
Yeah.
You know, the first grocery store was a Piggly Wiggly, and it used to before that, like
Really?
you go to your meat guy and just be like, I want this meat, and so it was really mind blowing to walk in and just like go, wait, I just can grab these items and then go up to you and buy them, like because you would go to your individual, like your milk was delivered to
Fishmonger.
your house, or you go to the fish. Yeah, they just go in the everyone would kind of go fetch the items for you. So the idea of walking in almost a warehouse style thing and go like, wait, what am I supposed to do? Like it was like he had to coach people on how to do them.
It was Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah, it's Piggly Wiggly.
Wow, that's
and then he
wild.
also the guy was really inventive and wanted to make he wanted to go the robotic route where it was like giant like vending machine type stuff that would go get all your items, but that never really panned out. Yeah.
Man, Piggly Wiggly's fallen from grace.
Yeah, they were the first grocery store in the modern sense of you having like a shopping cart and all of that. So, yeah.
That's all.
Okay.
That was over.